All right, well, I'm out on the road picking some stuff up. Got a couple pieces of inventory over there, but we're picking up something fun today. So I bought some stuff on an auction. Well, not some stuff, one thing. It's not the John Deere here. It's this thing. So this is a Skidoo Olympique 335. I'm out here at this auction company picking up. I bought it for 50 bucks. I couldn't really pass. Both of these, I was kind of bidding on both of them. The John Deere went for I think 170 or something. I thought about buying both of them just for the fun project, but this one only went for 50 bucks, so I guess I couldn't really pass it up. So this one, I believe this is maybe a 1970. I'll have to double check the year and stuff. But a 335 overall, it seems to be in pretty good shape. Motor turns over good. Seems to have good compression. It's basically complete. Seats look in decent shape. This hood's just kind of laying loose on here at the moment. That's what we got underneath it. So on these, gas tank is built into the chassis itself, which these are kind of known for rusting out. So we'll see if that's rusted or not. It kind of looks like somebody made up a little bitty gas can here just to maybe get it to go or something, but yeah, overall not too bad. So we get this thing thrown onto the trailer over there and then get it back to the shop and see if we can get this thing to fire up and run a little bit. All right, we've got this thing back at the shop here. Like I said, it seems to turn over really good with good compression. A lot of cables free on it. I haven't checked for spark or anything. So normally this is our little pigtail that plugs into all the rest of the wiring harness on the hood. Typically on these things, if you just unplug them, it essentially bypasses the kill switch and then just have spark the whole time. So you essentially don't have a kill switch. Let's give it a spray of some carb cleaner. Let's give it a pull. That was easy. Oh boy, this project might be a little too easy. That is a good sign. Little old two strokes, nice and simple. Well, I think my plan here is still to pull this carb off. So on these things are carbs. The way these work is there's a little fuel pump on the bottom side. Looks like these two lines. So this is basically a suction line from the gas tank, and the other one is like a return line that goes right up there and basically cycles this through the gas tank, which the gas tank on these is all part of the frame. So these are kind of notorious for rusting. My other one up there had a crack down at the bottom side, was leaking. Somebody's fabbed up this tiny little bitty gas tank there thing, which I'm sure they were just doing just to see if the thing would run. But so I'm thinking maybe I'll mix up a little gas, throw it in here, and see if this tank leaks. And let's pull this carb off and start cleaning it a little bit. See if we can get this thing to run on its own. All right, I just threw 2 gallons of gas in there, and it does not appear to be leaking at all, which is excellent. That would be amazing. So our gas lines are coming out here. Oh, I might kind of blow through those just to make sure they're clear. But I think we're going to take this carb off quick. So basically there's just 2 nuts on each side there, and then this whole carb will come off. And we'll tear it apart a little bit and see what it looks like on the inside. This one nut there on that side is impossible to get to, so I took a wrench and ground it down, and so I could just barely get it in there and give it just a tiny bit of a turn to get it started. So I think I've got it almost hand tight now, so see if we can wiggle it off there. Getting it back on is going to be kind of fun though. Alrighty, we got it loose there, so I just need to undo my little throttle cable clamp there, and then the one hose on the bottom here, and then we'll bring this carb over to the bench and then start pulling this bottom assembly off of it. Alright, here it is. So this is a Tillotson carburetor, which not my favorite things to work on because they're a little more complex than the typical round slide with a bowl sort of carb. So anyway, the way these things kind of work is they've basically got a built-in fuel pump system right there. That's what sucks in. This is a little pre-filter. And then basically these 2 knobs here, you've got a high speed and a low speed jet, which you can kind of tune and adjust. So a little bit easier for fine-tune adjustment on the fly compared to a typical carb with, you know, screw-in jets. But there's a bunch of tiny little passages and these little diaphragms inside here. So we're going to pull all these little flat screws off there, pull these out, we'll inspect all these little diaphragms and passages and clean everything out and see what happens. This is what it looks like. So here's a little diaphragm that basically pumps, and basically inside this little pump mechanism, you've got a bunch of little diaphragms and flaps with kind of like little check valves and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean all these little diaphragms up and pop this one off too underneath there. We should be able to get to like the main jet passages, and we're going to blow all that stuff out and get it nice and clean, put it all back together, and hopefully this thing will pump some fluid again. That's going to be the challenge, is to see if the fuel pump side of it works again. So underneath this little diaphragm here, we've got a little pop-off valve. This is kind of spring-loaded, and there's a little needle valve down inside there. So this little cavity actually fills up with gas, and then basically this little hole, that's our main high jet. This one down there is our low-speed jet. This little passage blows out gas out of the return side. I couldn't get any gas to come out of the little needle valve there, so I think what I'm going to do is remove that little flat screwdriver, pull that pin out, the needle out itself, and then clean that up. So I think we got some gunk in there, and that needle itself is stuck down in the seat at the moment. So that's the little needle valve and the little rocker arm. That's sat down inside there, so that was kind of stuck in there a little bit. I've got that cleaned out. Got the jet holes blown out, so let's kind of assemble this back together and then throw back on the engine and see if it's gonna run. Alrighty, carb is back on. We've got our fuel lines plumbed into place. I kind of try to prime this a little bit, kind of through the out exit of the carb there. See if I can kind of prime this fuel pump a little bit. So I think we're gonna try to start this thing up. I have no kill switch hooked up or anything yet, so hopefully it doesn't run away. Let's see what it does here. Alright, give a little bit of prime in the carb too. We'll see what it does. Okay. Nothing yet. Give it a little more prime. Well, my pull rope broke. That sucks. Alrighty, I got this recoil popped off here. Got the old rope and a longer section of new rope. So we're going to replace this thing. So down inside here, first thing we're going to do is pop this E-clip off. And most of the stuff should slide off. There's a big kind of coil spring down inside there. We'll try to be careful when we pull it off, because sometimes if you yank this out quick, that spring's just going to explode and unwind itself. So that's always the trick, is to try to pull these things apart gently so that bottom spring stays in place. So down inside here, there was a little spring underneath this washer and the E-clip. And then we've got this little mechanism here. That's our recoil part, where this kind of slides when you pull on it and grabs on the cup on the flywheel. Pull this off here. Perfect. And there's our spring down underneath there. So this has actually got kind of a little plate over that holds it in place. A lot of recoils, this little big coil spring, it's just basically a flat piece of steel that's wound up there about 100 times. Usually this is pretty exposed, where when you kind of pull up on it, these little bent ends like to stick onto the little recoil itself, and then when you pull up, it springs out of the little keeper, and then that spring goes everywhere. This one came apart easy, so we will slip the new cable in this. Okay, I got my new rope fed through here, so this fed through the top side. This is where the old one was, where it went down this way through the hole there, and then just kind of wedged itself in there, and then down and out the back side. I've got this roped around, so now we'll put it back on here, get our spring kind of set on there, and give it some preload. So with this back in place, all of the recoils always have some sort of notch in them like that, and that's for the rope to go in, so that when you put it in there, you can turn this and basically preload that spring. So give it, 5 or 6 good turns, and then feed your line back through the end, tie your handle back on, and this thing will be preloaded so that it'll pull nice and get back into place when you let go of the handle. So we're basically done with this. All right, we've got our recoil back on here. That pulls over. I've pulled this over just a couple times here, and we are, let me get to focus. We've got some fuel in the line there, so it is starting to suck up from the tank. Got a little gas sitting in the carb there. Got the choke on. We're gonna pull this thing over a little bit here and see if we can get to run. All right, I've got the back end jacked up. On these old snowmobiles, there's no neutral, so you don't want it to all of a sudden take off and go from you. Okay, we've got choke off. Got some gas in the carb there. See what it does. Kind of seems like we're getting a lot of gas to shoot out of that carb. Kind of turning these the high speed and low speed jets in. We're getting a lot of gas shooting back out. Good sign. I was kind of screwing with the high speed and low speed jet there for a little bit. I've got them basically turned all the way off. Oh, I think we're definitely flooded at the moment. Seeing a lot of gas coming out of the back of the carb there. I'm gonna pull a spark plug out. So it does run. We're getting a lot of gas to come spitting back out. So what I've been doing right now is, so this one with the knob on here, this is my low speed jet, and that one's my high speed jet. I've got this one turned all the way in, basically meaning zero fuel on the high side, and this one's cracked about half to, around half-ish turn, and that seems to idle okay. When it revs up, starts to rev, starts to die a little bit. If I open the high jet up a little bit, just give it like basically an eighth of a turn, quarter of a turn, seems to rev up okay. Then I come back down to the idle, and it's running way too rich. So basically, I think what's going on is some of those little diaphragms in there and stuff I think are kind of leaking. So we've kind of got a bunch of like check valve systems in there. And we're getting way too much gas when that high-speed jet is open. So in theory, these things should both be about 1.5 turns out, something like that, give or take. So I'm kind of thinking to get this thing to run right, we're going to need to do a full rebuild on that, see if I can get an actual rebuild kit for this carb. We'll find a different one. And then also this thing, the track on it, I've been driving it, and you can see down underneath here all those little crumbly pieces. Those are track drivers, which are basically non-existent on here, which is kind of what I expected. These things are just a super, super brittle plastic that does not take much to crack over time. So this thing, to get it to really drive again, definitely need some track drivers, which I did that on that one up there. It's not an impossible project, but it does kind of suck. You got to pull this chain case off and stuff, and then basically pull the whole track out from underneath it and put some new drivers in it. But I'm not sure how much farther I want to go with this one. I might just kind of post it for sale the way it is as another product for somebody else. I mean, it does start up and run. It's got a lot of potential, but just needs a little bit of love. I think I might still wash it up and detail it though too. In order to decode what year this is, our serial number's right here on this thing. So looking up at the breakdown for this year range, the 7012, that designates that it is a 1970. 70 being the first two digits there is the year, and then the 12 designates that it is an Olympic 335. So we've got a 1970. I'm going to look for some parts for this thing, see if I can find a carb kit for it, and maybe think about some track drivers. I at least want to get it to run correctly, which at the moment it's definitely just getting way too much fuel. So stay tuned. We'll get this thing kind of, well, I think first we're going to get it cleaned up, and then we'll call it a day on this thing, put the hood back on it, and see what it looks like all clean. And then maybe in another video, we'll get this thing to run better. Well, we've got it outside here. We're going to wash this thing up. Here's a little before. See if some of all this dirt and grime comes off this thing. We'll see if this thing will shine up a little bit and make it look a little bit more presentable. Overall, this thing is in pretty good shape. I mean, there's a few cracks in the hood and stuff, but very complete. Seat cover's in good shape. So I did end up ordering a carb kit for it, which ironically was $50, so same price I spent on this entire thing. And it definitely needs track drivers, but I think my plan going forward on this one is to rebuild this carb with a genuine rebuild kit and see if it runs better. If it seems to run okay, then maybe I'll tackle those track drivers and make it drivable. But if somebody wants a little project the way it sits, let me know. I don't know if I'm going to keep this one or not. I kind of have too many snowmobiles, and it seems to snow like once or twice a year here. All right, well, stay tuned. Maybe I'll do a follow-up on this one, and maybe next time we'll have some snow and give it a go-around.